Folks, a wise African elder once told me, I don't want peace. I want problems. Always. So in taking after that brave man's legacy, here we are. Yeah, here we are. Been a while since we've done a power scaling video. Sadly, this version of the video sucks. Top 10 playable characters by lore. 7 of these niggas are gods, Well, spawned in reading the title knowing 70% of the list already. I guess the fun lies in ranking them. Anyway, next Saturday's video should be more fun, which is just, top 10 strongest characters in lore ever now. That's gonna be the one. Fun fact, the last time I made that video was nearly 2.5 years ago, and, it bore witness to the first ever primordial one.
There is a reason he's in second place, and that's because the most powerful being Teyvat has ever seen is the primordial one, the creator of all.
Ugh, why do I sound like such a bitch? Anyway, before we get started, Bills. Captain, let me ask you guys a question. Do you like money? Of course you do. Great. Let me save you some money thanks to today's sponsor, Top Up Live. Without a doubt, the #1 third-party top-up site. Top Up Live offers you massively discounted prices for in-game currency for a wide array of titles. I mean, just look at this exhaustive list, but most importantly, Genshin Impact. With deals ranging from 19% off all the way to 28% off, all you have to do is select your pack, enter your user ID, and server, pay now, and boom, within honestly a couple seconds, the primos hit your accounts. No login is needed. Furthermore, for an extra 12% discount, use my code DAW, which you can find in the description and pinned comment section. And of course the bio. Now let me make one thing abundantly clear when it comes to the comment section on a video like this. I'd like us all to remember a small but meaningful truth. Every voice in the comments belongs to a real person. Behind every username is a real human being, someone who laughs, struggles, celebrates, and cares just like you do. The characters we discuss may be fictional, but the people here are not. So with that said, if you do plan on participating in the comments, please treat that other human like they just called your mother a dog. I want to see blood in the comments section! Fight my claims! Fight each other's claims! Fight me! Fight one another! Religion, politics, God, it's all fair game! Now that said, folks, welcome to the top 10 strongest playable Genshin Impact characters by lore, starting with number 10, Arlecchino. The highest ranking, well, I guess fucking remaining Fatui Harbinger, clocking in at rank 4. She possesses power just shy of that of the top 3, which all of power equal to that of the gods, thanks largely in part to being a descendant of the Crimson Moon dynasty. Through her blood flows a blood flame, which is the fusion of the powers of the iridescent moon and the abyss, and while this blood flame does grant her massive strength, it also comes with a drawback. Every time Arlecchino calls upon its powers, it feeds on her, hence the black marks she bears. While saving the Traveler in Columbina, for instance, she admitted her hands were now completely fused with the Abyss, and to any purification would result in them being destroyed, and she herself stated if the corruption were to ever reach her heart, she'd become a completely different person, which her own eyes is a sort of death. Still, she does use her powers a fair bit, like the time she sent the Traveler to the Shadow Realm while dispatching of 3 Vision users, and she was confident she could take down Farina, which at the time she believed to be the Hydro Archon, a god. Folks, further powering Arlecchino is a Pyro Vision, and of course a Delusion, which is also fucking Pyro, bitch likes fire, bestowed by the Tsaritsa. I mean, yeah, that's Arlecchino. Good at fighting, has some drawbacks, doesn't really have a power beyond fighting. 10th you go. In 9th place, oh boy, as this one's interesting, I have Zibai, who, as of recording this, is, well, spoiler, technically dead and, not playable yet. However, we all know she's coming, right? It's not, But regardless, we've no feats or descriptions of her power yet, so for what possible reason could she not only be on this list, but even above Arlecchino, who has feats and a clear descriptor for her power? Folks, Zibai is an angel, a race of beings created at the dawn of time by the heavenly principles, the only other group made by the mother and father to all gods are the 4 shades. Now, are angels shade level? No, not even close, but angels are clearly extraordinary beings often referred to as gods, like in the case of Nabu Malikata and the Lord of the Night. and we've seen them do some crazy things. Nicole seems central in the pulling of the Frost Moon to Teyvat, and she can also bypass Irminsul, and while she had guidance from Nova, the Lord of the Night created the Night Kingdom. And hell, the Abyss Sibiling went to the Lord of the Night to get permission on using the Loom of Fate, so even if the leader of the Abyss Order isn't one to fuck with the angels, then who am I? Who are you? Now, how much of, Zibai's original strength and power she's retained, who knows? We'll find out soon enough, but, given Istaroth, the Shade of Time, was the one who helped preserve Zibai, could be a decent amount. And if those series of arguments weren't convincing enough for you to believe Zibai should be on this list, what do you want from me? Shoot me. Your mothers are dogs. In 8th place, I have Venti, Lord Barbados, the Anemo Archon in possession of part of the Anemo Sovereign's authority, a god who once sliced mountains in half and threw them into the sea, creating islands. Not gonna lie, Venti's situation confuses me greatly. Depending on how you interpret things, he could be, ranked as low as 8th like he is now, or like fucking 3rd, purely because of Istaroth, the Shade of Time. I'm not going to delve too deeply into this just because I did make an entire video dedicated to it, but long story short, when Venti was but a wind sprite, he had a chance encounter with the God of Time, whereby in which she bestowed unto him some of her power and authority. How much? Who knows? But even a fraction of that power, yeah, that's the good stuff. Venti attributed this gifted power to helping him take down Dekarabian in the Archon War, and later Venti would go on to blow the Mare Javari off the timeline. I'm gonna be honest, I still don't exactly know what this means, other than it's causing time to move strangely in the Mare Javari, but that's also because the Bakanawa monster is there. But important point of clarification, Venti did not blow the Mare Javari off the map. That was only like 20 to 30 years ago, and we still don't know what caused that shit. But now, how is it possible? I could possibly have Venti as the weakest, despite all those feats. Well, for starters, this is a current day list, and in the current day, he said he's the weakest. And he wouldn't lie, I'm sure of it. Also, Venti doesn't have the Anemonosis anymore. Look, the way I view Venti is like this. He's like 30% known and 70% unknown, but it's impossible to gauge how big that unknown part of him is. Well, no, it's there, but, how big is it? We don't know. I'm sure, he'll do some fucking wild shit in the end game, like, I don't know. That's why, I don't know. Too many unknowns, bro. In 7th place, I have Nahida, Boor, the god of wisdom, the one overseeing Irminsul and the Dendro Archon in possession of part of the Dendro Sovereign's authority. Our first real non-fighter. In a straight fight, Nahida's not all that powerful. Hell, Arlecchino could probably beat her. So where does Nahida's power lie? Nahida is an expert in bullshit. Having access to Irminsul, which is the repository for all the memories of Teyvats, Nahida can simply erase the memories of a particular thing, no matter how big or small, from the minds of all the denizens of Teyvat. While this isn't a strong ability, it's most certainly powerful. The problem is, it also affects her, like when she deleted Rukkhadevata from everyone's memories, including her own. Beyond this, Nahida is the god of dreams, and she used such a power to trap the god Shoki no Kami in over 160 cycles of a dream, replaying the same fight over and over again. And Scaramouche didn't even realize he was trapped until Nahida gave it away. Folks, even if Nahida can't beat you, if she pulls off this maneuver to start the fight, good fucking luck. You're not leaving till you're gone. Furthermore, and I really feel like this isn't brought up enough regarding Nahida, she's the god of wisdom. She's a genius. She created a device recently that converts abyssal energy into usable elemental energy. And it was like the only reason Columbina was able to get enough power to match 10-11% rarer in a fight. Without this, they would have been fucked. So while Nahida might not have the strength to beat someone in a fight, she most certainly has the power to do so. All she really lacks is a gnosis and a killer instinct. Too nice, She'll grow into it, though. She is the youngest, after all. In 6th place, I have Zhongli, Morax, Deus Ori, the warrior god, the prime of the Adepti, and the Geo Archon in possession of part of the Geo Sovereign's authority. Well, Zhongli was once the warrior god who racked up quite the body count in the Archon War. Names like Shao's former master, the serpent god Qi, a massive sea monster named Bakui? Sure. Apparently, Zhongli's own whale couldn't stop this sea monster, by the way, because I guess he had a whale at one point. Let's not forget he also took down Osail, and hell, he was ready to take down Osail again in Liyue's Archon quest if Liyue failed. He also went toe-to-toe and eventually subdued Ajdaha, who some suspect to be the Geo Sovereign. I've said it once, I'll say it again. To me, Zhongli feels like the peak of what a god can be in Teyvat. He's the ceiling. Prime Zhongli! Oof, he clears every single Archon by a mile. But your prime is gone, old man. No longer in possession of a Gnosis. Warship of you is going down, which we know in part can provide an Archon with power. You know, the nation's moving on. Well, it's exactly how he's envisioned it. It's not doing any favors for his strength or power, but let's not forget, this is exactly what he wants. Zhongli is currently attempting to shed power before the erosion imposed on him by the heavenly principles does irreversible damage to him. He doesn't want to go down the path of Ajdahan, become a giant raging berserker with too much power, so he stepped down as Archon, gave up his Gnosis, and is now living a quiet life, hence why I have him in 6th. In 5th place, I got Mavuika, the god of war, the Pyro Archon in possession of part of the Pyro Sovereign's authority. You know, it's funny, I swear last year I made a similar list that had Mavuika above, well, every other Archon, for one simple reason, that being Mavuika is in possession of the Pyronosis, which despite what some claim is indeed a power boost.
After letting go of my Gnosis, I never expected to see a day like this again.
And which we've seen her use, like when, I have to say this guy's name again, Gosoititoth, the Heart of the Abyss itself, first appeared, causing Mavuika to use the Gnosis to restore the Sacred Flame, causing Goisatoth to flee. Now, despite being a human, Mavuika has probably the cleanest and most straightforward visible feat in the game, which is she straight up beat the Captain in a one-on-one fight, no ifs, ands, and buts about it. While removed from his prime, the Sentinel Knight of Conria held the rank 1 position for a reason. As Pyro Archon of Notlant, Mavuika has access to the Sacred Flame, with which her sword was used to slay Gosoititoth was made. We also know when Mavuika gets mad, she gets mad, as evidenced by the fact that when A pulled up to Conria during the Cataclysm, she found a stretch of land burned to cinders on a level she compared to the Musajin Gorge. She further used her mind to rescue the Traveler and friends from the Night's Kingdom. Further, I don't think there's a single nation that believes in their Archon as much as Notlan. They love their Archon, which again is in part of how an Archon gets their power. To me, she's the most complete Archon, has the Gnosis, she rules over her people are pious, has the Sacred Flame, but she's a human, so, just seal her away for 40 years and, that's it, fight's over. She's 30 now, she's coming out at 70. GG, obviously the tricky part is getting her sealed, but, I'm sure a god can manage. Now in 4th place, I do have a god. I have the Raiden Shogun, the Narukami herself, the Electro Archon in possession of part of the Electro Sovereign's authority, with probably the single most impressive feat in the game, that being one-shotting the god Urabashi, as well as splitting an island in half, creating the Musajin Gorge. It's tough to argue against her, given she managed to do all this well before becoming an Archon, meaning she was lacking both divine authority and the Gnosis. This was just pure strength. And again, it was a single strike. To do this, she used what she called the pinnacle of swordplay, a technique known as the Musa no Hitatachi. Now, doesn't seem like she needs to use this god strike to take down everyone, as she did defeat the monster Capicar, without mention of the strike. Beyond this, A has further given up her divine body in exchange for a puppet she made, which she's placed her consciousness into, allowing her to spend most of her time meditating away in the plane of Euthymia. But just because she's not slaying monsters and gods like she used to, doesn't mean she's getting rusty, as in her story quest, she fought the puppet for 500 years straight without losing. Much like Mavuika, the Raiden Shogun has a lot going for her. She rules over her nation actively, now more than ever. Her people have always been pious, but now they're especially pious given she's lifted the Vision Hunt Decree. She's partial authority over the element, and she's a god, which allows for scenarios like Raiden having fought longer than Mavuika's been alive. Now, with that said, I think the experience argument tends to be, way too overstated. I don't really like that argument, but it's worth bringing up. Ultimately, though, I just think A is the strongest she's ever been, and Mavuika's Gnosis is it's on a clock, let's be honest. Whilst A never really used her Gnosis, ever. She only had it for 100 years and then just gave it up. Only real weakness is, a human Kazuha blocked a Musa no Hitatachi, which, I guess she wasn't going full power, but it's still trolly to say. Alright, a human blocked your ultimate god strike. It's fucking trolly to say, we can all admit that. Now in 3rd place, I have Skirk. Skirk's an interesting one, given, I haven't a fucking feat for you all. We don't really know much about what she has done, but the context regarding her paints a clearer picture as to what she should be capable of. Student of the foul Sertologi, one of the 5 bastard Conrian sinners whose power himself far exceeds that of any Archon, he took Skirk under his wings and quite literally trained her until her hands would fall off, and then remake her hands using the power of the Abyss. This is why Skirk's limbs are a different color than the rest of her body. their pure abyssal power now. And speaking of abyssal power, this is what Skirk wields expertly. However, it doesn't look like this because Skirk manifests her power using the 7 shifting serpent technique, which allows her to manipulate abyssal power in a manner that gives it the illusion that it's one of the 7 elements, in this case, Crya. However, given her mastery, she could in theory cycle through all 7 of the elements like her master Sirologi could do effortlessly. Further, we've also seen her blick the all-devouring narwhal out of existence, and she herself remarked it was supposed to be her job to take down the whale. Folks, keep in mind, to defeat the whale by this point, it took the combined efforts of a dragon sovereign who had just gotten their full authority back, and the traveler, a descender. And Skirk was confident she could take it down all on her own, which makes sense given her nonchalant attitude toward the planet Devourer, calling it Master's pet. Anyway, aside from all this, main reason I have her above the Archons is the Abyss. It's her being. If she loses an arm in battle, she can regrow it using the Abyss. She no longer feels pain. Her species had a constitution that allowed them to coexist with the Abyss. It's why they were wiped out. It's why she's so adapted to it, despite it being deadly to any and everyone on Teyvats, including the gods. They all can fall victim to abyssal corruption. Skirk cannot. The only other person who's shown this level of resistance to the Abyss are the 5 sinners and the traveler, and even the sinners have some edge cases, as Daughter was actively losing her mind and going insane before merging with Nibiru. So ultimately, I've got Skirk here because, you know, she's got an element diff, folks. The Abyss is just a hard counter to Teyvats. And in second place, I've got Columbina Hyposelenia, the moon goddess, the Trilune goddess at that, you know, having in her possession the authority of the Frost Moon, Iridescent Moon, and Eternal Moon. She's now capable of some control over Teyvat's laws, meaning space manipulation, time manipulation, not just for herself, but for others as well. Folks, there's never been a Trilune goddess in Teyvat's history for this very reason. It's a lot of power in one being. Some have even suggested that Columbina could be shade level. Folks, that's blasphemy, okay? Complete and utter blasphemy. Putting aside the fact that even as Trilune goddess, Columbina stands in no match against the heavenly principles, she's still a denizen of Teyvat, a subject of fate. The shades exist above and beyond the laws, rules, and fates they've imposed on all beings of Teyvat. Back to Columbina, I mean, this is pretty straightforward. No, the only real question regarding her is following her, you know, giving back Nod-krai Kuvaki at the end of the Archon quest, how much of her power is she left with? She said she only gave what she needed, but, you know, that didn't really answer the question. Still, as Trilune Goddess, that title alone should place her squarely above the Archons, but not top dog. Because in first place, I still have Neuvillette, the dragon sovereign of water in complete control of his authority. Look, I hate the son bitch, I hate the dragon race, but I gotta give credit's due, man. For 40 years, his previous self and 6 other sovereigns squared off against the heavenly principles in 4 shades. Yeah, they lost in the end, but at least the motherfuckers tried. You know, the Archons shaking their boots at the mention of Celestia, and the Moon Sisters, by Nicole's accounts, weren't anywhere near powerful enough to fight the heavenly principles. So props for the effort out of the dragon sovereigns, man. Look, man, it rains when he's sad, okay? He's clearly more in tune with this world than everyone else. If it rains when he's sad, now, you know, some people do go overboard with his powers. You know, out here, like, Neuvillette's not out here bending the fucking blood, or the water in your blood. Evidently, this claim stems from a misunderstanding of what occurred in Fontaine's Archon quest. All Neuvillette did was separate the primordial seawater from people's blood, but this only worked because the Fontainians had primordial seawater in their blood, because they weren't fucking humans. They were like, whatever they were. I completely, mermaids, whatever the fuck they were. I completely forgot. Still, speaking of the primordial sea, he has absolute control over it, and given he's a sovereign with his own authority, his control over his element far exceeds that of the other Archons with partial authority over their element. There's a reason Neuvillette will one day put the gods on trial, and it's because he knows he can force it to happen now. Now, all this talk about the Usurper King in the Heavens being put on the trial, let's not get delusional now, but, you know, let's enjoy your spot at the #1, you know, strongest playable character thus far, because Lord knows, you know, you ain't cracking the list next week when we include all characters.